There's something quietly ironic about this. The chilled gin and tonic you hold in a polished bar today once began as a survival tactic in a sweltering, tropical jungle. It wasn't created to feel sophisticated. It wasn't meant for leisurely evenings. It existed for one blunt reason: to avoid dying of malaria. It sounds like a colonial drama, but it's simply history. Let's step back to the 19th century. The British Empire stretched across the globe, from foggy London to humid territories like India. And there, the greatest threat wasn't rebellion. It wasn't warfare. It was a mosquito. Malaria killed hundreds of thousands of people each year. A single bite was enough. The parasite Plasmodium would slip into the bloodstream, invade the liver, then rupture red blood cells. High fever, chills, waves of drenching sweat. The illness returned every few days like clockwork. Without treatment, mortality rates could reach 20%, meaning 1 in 5 people might not survive. Imagine a regiment of UNU-000 soldiers, 200 of them gone because of an insect no larger than a fingernail. So what could be done? The answer lay in a tree growing across the ocean. In South America, indigenous communities had long known that the bark of the cinchona tree could reduce fever. Europeans learned from that knowledge. They extracted its active compound quinine and turned it into the only reliable defense against malaria for centuries. There was just one problem. It was unbearably bitter. Not the gentle bitterness of coffee, not the sharp edge of beer. This was tongue-twisting, face-contorting bitterness. Even a small amount of pure quinine could make someone wince, as if they had bitten into raw grapefruit peel. Some records suggest that British soldiers would rather endure fever than swallow the medicine. That wasn't exaggeration. The taste triggered an almost immediate instinct to spit it out. A strange challenge emerged. How do you persuade thousands of people to take a medicine they truly despise? British officers, practical as ever, began experimenting. They diluted quinine in water and added sugar to soften the taste. Then they introduced carbonated water. The bubbles added freshness and distracted the palate. Still, it wasn't enough. Something was missing. That something was gin. Gin was already a common spirit in the British military. When quinine was mixed with sugar, soda water, and a measured amount of gin, something shifted. Soldiers drank it more willingly, not because they suddenly loved the medicine, but because it now resembled a cocktail rather than a dose of punishment. And so, gin and tonic was born. Not behind a London bar counter, but inside an overheated military outpost in India. It wasn't mixed for pleasure. It was mixed for survival. Yet the story doesn't stop there. Once a survival method becomes easier to swallow, literally, it begins to outgrow its original purpose. By the early 20th century, cultivation of cinchona trees had expanded. Malaria treatments improved, and the urgency of forcing soldiers to take quinine declined. But the distinctive bitter note had already embedded itself into culture. Companies began bottling tonic water, essentially carbonated water with quinine and sugar, no longer primarily as medicine, but as a beverage. Gin and tonic left the barracks. It entered living rooms. Then it took its place at bars around the world. There's an important detail here. The amount of quinine in 19th century tonic water was far higher than what you find today. Back then, it was strong enough to serve as malaria prevention. Today, quinine levels are strictly limited for safety reasons. In simple terms, you cannot rely on a modern gin and tonic to protect you from Amazonian mosquitoes. And yet we sip it calmly, as if it were a symbol of refined lifestyle. In truth, it's a relic from a time when cocktails were medicine. Seen more broadly, this isn't just a story about a drink. It's a story about human adaptation. When confronted with life and death challenges, we don't only search for technical solutions, we also search for ways to make those solutions tolerable. A pill that tastes too bitter? We coat it in sugar. A dangerous mission? We tell jokes in the trenches. An empire determined to survive in the tropics? It turns medicine into a social drink. There's something both clever and deeply human in that. Perhaps that's why gin and tonic has endured for more than a century. It's more than a mix of alcohol and soda. It's liquid memory, a distilled reminder of a historical era. The clink of ice in the glass today may faintly echo the whir of handheld fans in Indian barracks, the hum of mosquitoes outside a tent, and a young soldier grimacing at his first swallow. The difference is simple. You drink it because you enjoy it. They drank it because they were afraid to die. So the next time someone asks, "What's special about gin and tonic?" you might smile and say it's the drink that once, quite unintentionally, helped an empire endure in mosquito-ridden lands. And if the idea that a single glass can hold an entire chapter of history intrigues you, consider this. Many ordinary objects around us carry stories just as unexpected. Perhaps next time we open a familiar can or pour another common drink, we'll discover it once served a very different purpose. For now, raise your glass, not in celebration, but in quiet acknowledgement. Sometimes, within bitterness, humanity finds a surprisingly sweet way to survive.